Hello everyone, like always the best movie tale summary is here. Please watch the video all the way through, we hope you like it. Mobster Frank Costello, an Irish American, says in a voiceover that he wants to create his own environment rather than being a byproduct of it. A grainy historical film shows violent riots that took place in Boston in former times. The unrepentant racist, proudly Irish Costello, says that what irritates him about African Americans is their inability to accept that they will not be given anything. According to Costello, you must take what you want by all means necessary. In a little convenience store, Costello approaches the proprietor, who is obviously scared by Costello, and demands protection money. He is advised by Costello to have more money the next time. Behind the counter, the shop owner's young teenage daughter is asked by Costello if your period has arrived yet. His casual demeanor makes him seem even more menacing. The daughter responds to the powerful Costello's inquiry because she feels both driven and offended by him. The proprietor of the shop displays no emotion. Little Colin Sullivan, the young child, observes Costello's relationship with the shop owner. He is noticed by Costello, who inquires about his parentage. Next, he presses some coins into the youngster's hand after instructing the store owner to give the boy 2 full bags of groceries. He reminds the youngster that when he becomes older, Costello will give him more money. As Sullivan reaches adulthood, Costello mentors him and helps him land a position as a police officer so he can keep Costello up to date. Following his graduation from the police academy, Sullivan is hired by the Massachusetts State Police. He is admitted to Alderby's Special Investigations Unit, which specializes in investigating organized crime. Costello is the unit's main objective. Captain Queenan and Staff Sergeant Dignam extend a warm welcome to Matt Damon playing Sullivan as he joins the State Police Department. DiCaprio, acting as Billy Costigan, is a student at the police academy and comes from a large extended family with strong ties to organized crime. Before he graduates, Queenan and Dignam call him into a meeting where they humiliate, intimidate, and verbally abuse him. Because he is too intelligent to be a police officer and because his family has connections to crime, they put pressure on him to resign as an officer. When Costigan refuses to participate in their hazing, they switch tactics and offer him a position as a police officer, but only if he will drop out of the academy, spends a significant amount of time in jail on a false assault charge, and enter Costello's group. The only people who will be aware that Costigan is undercover are Queenan and Dignam. After he completes the task, they guarantee him a bonus. In order to finance a narcotics trade, Costigan approaches his cousin after being released from prison. At the neighborhood tavern where Costigan and his cousin meet Mr. French, Costigan orders a cranberry juice. The patron seated next to him at the bar inquires about Costigan's period. Mr. French stops Costigan after he throws a beer mug over the man's head. Costigan is fortunate that the man in the bar is not one of the men Mr. French warns him not to beat up. While eating at the counter of a store similar to the one where Sullivan and Costello first met, Costigan confronts 2 Providence-based Italian mobsters who were attempting to extort protection money from the store owner. He severely beats the 2 men, striking one of them so hard that his hand is broken. Once Costigan is informed of his activities, Costello calls him into a meeting. He volunteers to defend Costigan from the Mafia, who he claims will kill Costigan after returning with reinforcements. He calls Costigan into a back room and orders Mr. French, a more experienced member of Costello's team, to search Costigan for wires or weapons. In an effort to convince Costigan to confess to being a cop, Mr. French breaks Costigan's cast open, and Costello hits Costigan's fractured hand with a shoe. Despite taking their pounding, Costigan is recognized by Costello as a real thief. The credibility of Sullivan and Costigan grows throughout their respective organizations. Sullivan goes to the crime scene where the 2 Providence Mafia guys are discovered. After speaking with Costello, Sullivan receives instructions to steer the investigators away from Costello. Madeline Matten, a psychiatrist, and Sullivan start dating. She is also seen by Costigan, but only as a client, as required by the rules of his probation. He starts to feel drawn to her as well. Sullivan informs Costello of the police operation during a deal to sell stolen missile guidance microchip to Chinese government agents, and everyone avoids police detection by boarding boats waiting at the back of the store. Sullivan and Costigan both realize there is a mole in the other's group, however it is impossible to identify who it is. Dignam encourages Costigan to provide evidence so they can find the mole after he threatens to leave during their conversation. Costigan, who was very upset, concedes. With Martin, who intends to live with Sullivan, he has coffee. Sullivan is instructed by Costello to identify the ravenous group. Sullivan requests the social security numbers and other kinds of identification from his crew members so he can locate them. When Costigan looks for the informant, a member of Costello's crew reveals to him that Costello is actually an FBI informant, which explains why federal prosecutors have continually failed to charge and detain Costello. Late one night, Costigan pays Queenan a visit at his house and informs him that Costello is an FBI informant. Mr. French gathers everyone's ID and social security numbers. In the package containing their personal information, Fitzgibbons had spelled citizens incorrectly. Costigan fixes it before departing. Martin is completing her move out of her apartment when he stops by to see her. She informs him that she would be residing with Sullivan. They converse before having sex. Ellerby assigns Sullivan, citing his Immaculate's record, to lead the search for the Special Investigations Unit mole. Costigan follows Costello to a pornographic venue where he witnesses Costello meeting with and handing the envelope containing the personal information of Costello's crew members to a mysterious dark figure named Sullivan. Neither man discovers the others identify as Costigan, pursue Sullivan through Chinatown and out the theater's emergency exit. To follow Queenan to a meeting with Costigan, Sullivan instructs Costello. Prior to Queenan being thrown from the roof by Costello's men and landing at Costigan's feet, Costigan escapes. Costigan joins Costello's group as they depart, acting as though he has just arrived to take part in the assassination. Dillahunt has been fatally injured. Dillahunt identifies Costigan as the mole of their pub, but he passes away before he can inform anybody else. Dillahunt, a crew member, was an undercover cop, according to a news story. Didman is consequently obliged to retire from the police department. Sullivan calls Costigan on Queenan's phone but is unable to convince him to give up his job as a mole. Via Queenan's diary, Sullivan discovers that Costello worked as a Federal Bureau of Investigation informant. He is concerned that his role as a Costello mole may be discovered. The police track Costello with Costigan's assistance to a cocaine pickup, where a firefight breaks out between his gang and the police, killing the majority of Costello's crew. When Costello is confronted by Sullivan, he confesses to being a sporadic FBI informant. He is shot many times by Sullivan. The following day, the entire police congratulates Sullivan for killing Costello. Costigan visits him in good faith with the intention of recovering his civilian identity and receiving back pay. He informs Sullivan that he plans to return to the workforce. As Costigan spots the envelope from Costello on Sullivan's desk, Sullivan gets up to check Costigan's personnel file. Costigan understands Sullivan is Costello's spy at last. When Sullivan gets back to his workstation, he understands that Costigan has discovered his true identity and lets Costigan's employment information from the police database. Medellin informs Sullivan of her pregnancy but withholds the identity of the father. A few days later, a parcel from Costigan marked to Sullivan arrives in the mail for her. When she opens it, a CD of Costello's recorded chats with Sullivan is inside. She is listening as Sullivan enters and makes an unsuccessful attempt to allay her concerns. He speaks with Costigan, who informs him that Costello tape recorded all of his conversations with Sullivan. The recordings were left by Costello with his lawyer, who then gave them to Costigan. Sullivan will be blamed if Costigan doesn't get his civilian identity back. On the roof of the same structure where Queenan was killed, they decide to meet. Sullivan is handcuffed by Costigan after being caught off guard when they first meet. Officer Brown also makes an unannounced appearance on the roof, as Costigan had planned. Brown pulls a gun on Costigan after being alarmed to see Sullivan in handcuffs and being held at gunpoint by the man. Costigan reveals that Sullivan is the mole in order to justify his conduct. Brown is questioned by Costigan as to why Didman did not join him, but he remains silent. Brown follows Sullivan and Costigan up the stairs to the elevator. Officer Bargan shoots Costigan once the doors of the elevator open on the ground floor. When Brown shows up, Bargan also ends his life. Bargan informs Sullivan that Costello was planning to turn both of his moles over to the FBI and that he had more than one mole on the police. Sullivan shoots Bargan in the head as soon as he turns for a brief second. In order to protect him, Sullivan makes up a tale at police headquarters, naming Bargan as the mole and recommending Costigan for the Medal of Merit. Sullivan and Medellin are present for Costigan's funeral, standing by the grave. She ignores Sullivan's attempts to speak with her. Dignam greets Sullivan as he enters his apartment and shoots and kills him. A rat scampers up the balcony railing as the frame moves up to the window in the Massachusetts State House's gold dome in the distance. We appreciate you watching our video. I really hope you enjoyed our videos. Please like and subscribe to our channel. View more entertaining videos from our channel that have been recapped.